What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're a fan of NFL drama and controversial takes, you're in for a treat today. We've got a real showdown brewing between two major figures in football right now, Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Clark. The tension is real, and things are getting heated. Rodgers took a shot at ESPN and its commentators. And of course, Ryan Clark had something to say about it. Spoiler alert, it wasn't pretty. So grab your popcorn, because we're diving into this wild debate. Aaron Rodgers' criticism of ESPN. Alright, let's set the stage. Aaron Rodgers, the future Hall of Famer and four-time MVP, made his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee Show, the show where he's raking in over $1 million to talk football. During this segment, Rodgers got real candid about how he thinks sports media has evolved, or in his opinion, devolved. He went off about how there are now too many people on TV, some of whom don't even have notable careers to back up their opinions. He pointed out that opinion-driven talk shows and hot takes are becoming more popular than just showing highlights like they used to. According to Rodgers, it's become more about the personalities on TV than the actual sport itself. He didn't name any names, but he subtly dragged those who didn't have much of a career but are now famous for being loud. Unfounded or asinine, were his words. Now, remember, Rodgers didn't specifically call out Pat McAfee, his good friend and former NFL punter turned commentator, or A.J. Hawk, his former teammate, but the indirect shade was very much there. Rodgers argued that people who weren't stars during their playing careers are now making a living on TV by being loud and sharing hot takes. He didn't mince words about how it's changed from the early 2000s when sports media was all about highlights and not about the constant commentary. Now, if you're an NFL fan, you know this wasn't going to slide under the radar, right? Enter Ryan Clark, a guy who knows a thing or two about NFL talk shows. Ryan Clark responds, a reality check for Rodgers. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Ryan Clark, ESPN analyst and former Pittsburgh Steelers safety, didn't take too kindly to Rodgers' comments. Clark fired back on first take, and it was not pretty for Rodgers. He went right after the hypocrisy of the whole thing. Clark started by pointing out that Rodgers is actually doing exactly what he's criticizing. He's sitting there, collecting a paycheck, making appearances on McAfee's show, getting paid big bucks for it, the same thing he's now calling out in others. Remember, Rodgers makes over $1 million just for his weekly appearances on the show. And Clark's like, hey, you're part of the problem you're calling out. Clark called Rodgers tone deaf, and said that his comments were sickening and downright hypocritical. He didn't stop there. Clark even went as far as calling Rodgers a fraud. His point? Once Rodgers' football talent fades, what's left? Is he just going to be another loud voice trying to stay relevant? Clark basically said, you can throw a football, but beyond that, what's there? It's a pretty bold take from Clark, and it definitely adds fuel to the fire between the two. But Clark wasn't done. He was fired up, and it's clear he's not holding back. Cam Newton weighs in. Cam Newton, former NFL MVP and now commentator on First Take, also weighed in, agreeing with Clark's take. He said that Rodgers is struggling with a new reality where he's no longer considered the elite quarterback he once was. The Jets are sitting at 3-10, and Rodgers' personal statistics aren't enough to carry him anymore. Newton said it's awkward for Rodgers and added that hypocritical was the best word to describe his actions. Now, this is coming from another guy who's had his own ups and downs in the NFL. So you know this opinion carries weight. So, what's really going on here? Alright, let's break this down. Aaron Rodgers has had a storied career, there's no arguing that. He's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. But here's the thing. He's at the tail end of his career now. The Jets have struggled this season, and it's clear that Rodgers is not the dominant force he once was. Could it be that he's lashing out a bit, feeling like his time has passed? It's possible. Clark's criticism is pretty sharp, but it does bring up a good point. Rodgers is using media to stay relevant. Just like the people he's criticizing, he's being paid to speak, and it's clear that his opinions are now driving a lot of attention. So, is he really any different from the people on those talk shows he's dissing? It's a bit of a head-scratcher. Honestly, at the same time, sports media is changing, and maybe Rodgers isn't loving the way things are going. Shows are driven by opinions, hot takes, and loud personalities, and not just by the actual plays on the field. That's the world Rodgers has to live in now. Alright, folks, this debate is far from over. Aaron Rodgers and Ryan Clark have clearly got some serious beef. And who knows, this could turn into an ongoing saga in the NFL media world. So, what do you think? Is Rodgers being a hypocrite? Or is he just speaking the truth about how the media landscape has changed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. We're going to keep you updated on all the latest NFL drama. Catch you next time. Is Aaron Rodgers' time with the Jets over before the season even ends? Football. The game where anything can happen. But what happened Sunday? Well, let's just say it wasn't a good day for Aaron Rodgers or the New York Jets. It started with what should have been a simple connection between Rodgers and Garrett Wilson. The stage was set. Wilson was wide open in the end zone. Just 9 yards away from a potential score. Rodgers had plenty of time. The protection was solid. And, in theory, this should have been a textbook touchdown. But, instead of a touchdown, Rodgers threw an interception. And not just any interception, a pick six to defensive lineman Leonard Williams. Ouch. Just like that, the Jets' hopes of starting a rout turned into a spiral of despair. From that moment on, the Jets didn't score again. They didn't even reach the red zone. And, to make things even more awkward, the game ended with the Seahawks walking away with a 26-21 win. Rodgers struggles. A symbol of the Jets' dysfunction. It's hard to believe we're here, right? A few months ago, this was a team full of optimism. A playoff team, many said. A team that could seriously make a Super Bowl run. The offensive line was improved. The defense was intact. The playmakers were ready. And of course, Aaron Rodgers was back. He was supposed to be the missing piece. The answer. The savior. But as the calendar flipped to December, reality hit. The Jets are sitting at a dismal 3-9 record. They're technically not eliminated from playoff contention. But at this point, their chances are slimmer than a snowflake in the Sahara. One more win from the Chargers or Broncos. Or another Jets loss, and they're officially toast. This marks the 14th straight year that the Jets have missed the playoffs. A streak that holds the title of the longest playoff drought in all 4 major North American sports leagues. To make matters worse, the Jets are now staring down a 9th consecutive losing season. If they lose one more, they'll be facing their 10th double-digit losing season in the last 13 years. Talk about disappointing. Rodgers' statistics. A microscopic look at a franchise's struggles. Aaron Rodgers' struggles this season are like a microcosm of the Jets' dysfunction. This wasn't supposed to be the narrative. The 4-time MVP was supposed to be the guy to turn this ship around. But his numbers tell a different story. On Sunday, Rodgers finished 21 of 39 for 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. This marked his 5th game under 200 yards passing. To make matters worse, he's yet to throw for over 300 yards all season. His 8 interceptions are tied for the second most he's had in a season since 2010. This is not the same Rodgers who helped win Super Bowls and set records in Green Bay. Let's talk about a couple of statistics that really stand out. Rodgers has had 5 chances this season with the ball in his hands, with realistic time to drive down the field and win the game. The Jets? 0 wins in those situations. Zilch. Nada. This latest performance wasn't just a bad game for Rodgers, it was the worst of his season. After getting the Jets to the Seahawks' 29-yard line, Rodgers couldn't pull it off. Incompletions, a sack, and another incompletion later. The game was essentially over. Is it time to bench Rodgers? After another humiliating loss, the Jets were, as they often are, in full-blown crisis mode. Following their defeat to the Broncos, there were whispers about benching Rodgers in favor of veteran Tyrod Taylor. The offensive staff managed to convince the higher-ups to table that discussion. But now it seems to be back on the table. Even interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich, who has been very vocal about sticking with Rodgers, was less definitive on Sunday. When asked about making a quarterback change, Ulbrich responded with a cautious, "Not as of today." In Rodgers' defense, he didn't give much clarity either. "I don't know," Rodgers said. "We'll figure that out when we have those conversations." The issue, though, is that benching Rodgers might not make a difference. Sure, Tyrod Taylor is a solid backup, but he's not the long-term answer. He might bring a little spark, but we've seen this movie before. Eventually, he'll just be another guy in a long line of quarterbacks who couldn't make it work in New York. If we're being honest, the Jets' problems go far beyond the quarterback position. The offense has been a mess all season. Rodgers hasn't thrown for more than 250 yards since October. The Jets have scored more than 21 points just twice since September. They've lost 3 straight games, and 8 of their last 9. If this was anyone but Rodgers, the quarterback change would already be in the works. The Jets' future. A fresh start is looming. Rodgers' future with the Jets has become a hot topic, especially since SNY reported 2 weeks ago that it was highly unlikely Rodgers would be back in 2025. The Jets are reportedly planning a fresh start.